Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's update on New Brunswick's Return to School Plan. Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à cette mise à jour au sujet du plan de retour à l'école du Nouveau-Brunswick. Les porte-paroles aujourd'hui seront les sous-ministres du ministère de l'Éducation et Développement de la Petite Enfance, Marcel Lavoie pour le secteur francophone et George Daly pour le secteur anglophone. Speaking on behalf of the province today are the Deputy Ministers of Education and Early Childhood Development, Marcel Lavoie for the Francophone sector and George Daly for the Anglophone sector. Marcel?
Thank you, Danielle. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here again today. As you know, we have a dual education system, and sometimes we use different approaches. My message has some nuances that are targeted specifically to the Francophone sector. In the last month, you've probably heard the expression learning mixed or hybrid learning when we talk about high school education in the school year for 2020-2021. For some of you, it might be a new concept. Indeed, it is certainly a departure compared to traditional teaching methods. I would like to give you a preview of what schooling will look like for students between 9th and 12th grade in the Francophone sector, what we've planned and what we are anticipating for the start of classes in the schools in this province. For many years, sustained efforts have been deployed in high schools to offer students choices of courses that match their interests, their needs, and their aspirations. Beyond the courses that are compulsory to getting a diploma, students participate more in meaningful and engaging activities that allow them to develop their skills for future life and career projects. Students have the opportunity to have experiences that allow them to discover themselves, the world, and the opportunities that are available to them. They have access to various courses, which allows them to be more engaged in their learning. In planning back to school, we worked hard to maintain a learning environment that was as close to a normal schooling framework while bringing changes that aim to protect the health and security of young learners in New Brunswick. The choices that students make in high school facilitate their access to post-secondary education and career opportunities. It is therefore essential for students to be able to continue to choose courses that meet their needs and that are aligned with their life and career objectives. This means that bringing together students in bubbles like we're going to do for K-8 students is not possible for students between grade 9 and 12. It would be impossible to do it because of the particular school schedule planned for 2021. This is why we've offered mixed learning models to reduce the number of students in classrooms and to encourage social distancing in schools. Throughout the province, there are approximately 70 high schools that offer education to 9th and 12th grades. Student populations and facilities vary from one school to the other. Schools already use diverse educational approaches, and they will continue to do it. I would like to talk about a few general concepts now that will give families an idea of the changes to come, and also to highlight some of the advantages that students will be able to take advantage of in terms of learning. Mixed learning means that most students will go to school every other day. I want to be clear. This is very important. The days that students are not at school are not vacation days. Students will continue to learn full-time from K to 12. Learning objectives for each course are the same as they were before. But for students in high school, weekly schedules will look different than they did last year. Students at home will have to maintain contact with their teachers and classmates regularly throughout the school day in order to collaborate. Of course, attendance will be recorded and verified every day because their participation is essential to their learning and school success. On certain days, high school students will use technology to learn at home in order to communicate with their classroom and classmates, or they will participate in activities that are connected to their learning objectives. This could include a combination of traditional distance learning, online courses, collaboration projects, workplace or community internships. Students who are at home and students who are in classes will be able to use Microsoft Teams and Click platforms. These technologies will allow students to collaborate and to have access to external resources for their learning. Again, there will be opportunities for students that will allow them to focus on their interests, explore various subjects, and collaborate on meaningful projects. In the spring and the summer, teachers had access to professional development activities that would allow them to prepare for the coming school year. Of course, the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development will be offering continued support to educators throughout the school year through personalized support, sharing best practices, and professional development opportunities. Many of you are certainly aware that the department is going to be introducing the Bring Your Own Device BYOD program in order to support blended learning. For families, this means that high school students will have to bring their own device for the school year starting in September. This initiative will encourage sustained learning while students transition between learning at home and learning in classrooms. This is what brings me to the new laptop subsidy program that will be offered to families of low and middle income to support the Bring Your Own Device initiative. Eligible families who purchased a laptop computer since March 16th for a high school student can make a request through the funding program to get a refund. Eligible families that have not yet purchased a laptop have two choices. They can purchase a device the normal way and request a refund as long as the computer meets the technical specifications. They can also choose to buy a laptop through Dell worth $600 through IMP. The family will only have to pay the difference between the cost of the laptop and the funding that is approved by the department. For example, if a family is eligible for $400 in funding, the laptop will cost them $200. To choose this option, the families will have to submit a request to get a discount code on the department website. Furthermore, families that are not eligible for the subsidy program can take advantage of the IMP program to purchase a laptop that costs $600. We continue to receive requests from families that want to take advantage of the subsidies. This means that not all families will have a computer in time for the start of classes. It's clear that all provinces are working hard to get laptops for all of their students, so it's normal that there could be some challenges with regards to accessing laptops in time for the first day of school. We don't want families to be too worried about this. Don't be anxious if your child doesn't have a computer for the first day of school. We are working with school district representatives to make sure that devices will be able to be loaned to students until they get their own device. If you plan on purchasing a new device, you have to consult the guidelines to make sure that the device you choose will offer your student a positive learning experience in the long term. Like it's the case with any change, we can't promise that everything will go smoothly and that there will be no complications. However, I want to say that we will continue to work in the spirit of collaboration throughout the school year to make sure that we have prepared students for long-term success. Before finishing and giving the floor to my colleague, I think it's necessary at this stage in the process regarding back to school to remind you that there is no perfect recipe or turnkey solution when we talk about going back to school in a pandemic. The staff of the Anglophone and Francophone sectors are making extreme efforts to find the balance that matches the needs of the schools in our region and to mitigate the risks for COVID-19 while limiting the damage on the schooling for our children. It is possible that we will have to make adjustments according to the situation throughout the school year. Let's not forget that the situation that we're experiencing and the challenges that are connected to it are unprecedented. This means we need to adapt and we need to collaborate with all partners and stakeholders that want to preserve and reinforce the quality of our public education system in the province. With regards to the department, please, all the stakeholders and our partners, please know that the student interests are a top priority. I'd like to now give the floor to Deputy Minister George Daly, who will talk to you about the plans with regards to technology for the upcoming school year.
Thank you, Marcel, and good afternoon. As Marcel has pointed out, New Brunswick has a dual education system, and today we are sharing the educational approach for each of our sectors. At times, our approaches may vary slightly, or at times they may be exactly the same as they are with the laptop subsidy program that I'll talk about in a few minutes. In planning for their return to school, we've strived to maintain a learning environment for New Brunswick students that is as close to normal as possible while making changes to protect their health and safety. The course choices students make in their high school years will help open doors towards their chosen post-secondary programs and career opportunities. As such, it was essential for us that the students continue to be able to have options and to make course selections that responded to their goals. This meant that we could not bubble the high school students the way we did in the K-8 system. Scheduling to allow for individual course options would just not have been feasible. Our chosen model, blended learning, allows course choices and allows attendance at least every second day while providing 1 meter spacing for our students in our classes. Schools with ample size classrooms or low enough class size numbers to allow for the 1 meter spacing, such as many of our rural schools, may have daily attendance for all students. This will be dependent on the individual school's operational plan. When a student is learning from home, this should not be considered as a day off. Students will continue to learn full-time whether they're at home or at school, as their participation is essential in their learning. Full assessment will occur, including the awarding of grades, and a daily attendance will be taken and tracked. When students are not physically in class, they may learn remotely via Microsoft Teams or Desire to Learn, which is also referred to as D2L. They could also be doing projects virtually or participating in independent experiential learning opportunities. This could even include virtual co-ops. Approaches, however, may look different from school to school or even class to class. That said, all students will remain in contact with teachers and classmates regularly throughout the day. The BYOD model means that high school students will now be expected to bring their own electronic devices for learning. This is a project that has been a goal within the system for some time. One of the biggest reasons we've been moving towards the BYOD model is because we wanted to allow students to use technology that's familiar to them and to give them choice. This will help promote the continuity of learning while students transition from an in-class learning to working online or with groups. It will be support the blended learning outcome practices as we move through this upcoming year. In addition, in the event of a COVID outbreak, it will also mean education will seamlessly continue. We realize that this is a significant shift for our system. We have worked with our districts and teachers in late June, over the summer, and will again next week on professional development focused on preparing them for this model and a long-term shift with the Bring Your Own Device, or BYOD. The department and school districts will continue to support educators through this transition. Through surveys conducted in June, roughly 80% of families indicated students already had access to a device that they could use for home learning. Roughly 60% indicated that they would be comfortable with the students bringing these devices to school. We recognize some families would require financial assistance on the purchase of technology. As a result, we announced in July a laptop subsidy program, which is available to students from low and middle income families through the parent portal. A link to the parent portal is found on the main EECD website. Since the announcement, our phone lines have experienced high call volumes. To date, we've responded to more than 5,000 emails and phone calls, and we really want to thank all the parents for their patience through this process. I can assure you we have added additional resources to our teams to get back to everyone as quickly as possible, and we are now returning phone calls and emails in less than 48 hours. Eligible families who have previously purchased a laptop for a high school since March 16, 2020, may still apply to the program for reimbursement. Eligible families who have yet to purchase a laptop have the following options. They may purchase their own laptop outright and can be reimbursed, provided the laptop meets the technical specifications. Families may also choose to purchase a $600 Dell laptop that meets the specifications through IMP Solutions and use their subsidy towards the total cost. For instance, if you were eligible for a $400 subsidy, this laptop would cost you only $200. For this option, families will need to apply for a subsidy code on our website. Even if you are ineligible for a subsidy, high school families can purchase a laptop meeting our specifications through IPM Solution for roughly the cost of $600. To order, families should use the special code that they received in July in an email from the department. Since the start of the pandemic in March, global demand of electronic devices has increased significantly, and suppliers have been under immense pressure. We have been working closely with IMP to ensure that the laptops through this program are made available to students as soon as possible. As families are still applying for the subsidy now, we do anticipate that not everyone will have a laptop on the first day of school. We do not want families to panic. We are working with districts, and we will ensure that devices can be loaned to students in such cases until their new device arrives. While students are welcome to bring their devices they already own for learning, they must be able to work on the learning platforms of Microsoft Teams as well as the D2L system. The recommended technical specifications for these programs and in the laptops or tablets is available on our website. While Chromebooks and cell phones may be functional and be the preferred option for some students, they are not recommended as they may not be compatible for the learning platforms over the long term of high school, nor offer the students the best learning experience. If that is the device that family or students already have, they are welcome to bring them and use them in the system. If a family is looking to make a new purchase, please consult the recommended guidelines on our website to ensure that the student will be provided with the best possible experience for the long term. Newly purchased devices not meeting the required specifications will not qualify for the subsidy program. For students without access to internet at home, especially those who live in rural areas where there are no connection zones, the department is working with the districts and the schools to identify alternate spaces where students can go to study, where they will have access to high speed when they are not scheduled to physically be in class. More information on this will be available directly through your school and district in the coming days and weeks. Parents should also know that the department is finalizing arrangements that students will have access to technical supports to support the BYOD model, whether they are learning from home or at school. Support will be available to help students get connected or troubleshoot any issues that they may experience while accessing the learning platforms. Again, in the event that a class or a school needs to self-isolate, having this technology on hand helps students move to a full-time virtual learning environment very quickly. This will minimize any disruptions in learning. Even if students are required to learn from home for a period of time, with our blended learning model and its tools, full-time learning will continue. Students will be expected to achieve learning outcomes, and assessments will go forward, report cards will be issued. I thank you for your attention this afternoon, and we'll now take any questions from the media.
We'll now proceed with questions from the media. Each reporter will have one question. You can pose your question in the language of your choice. Nous allons maintenant procéder aux questions des journalistes.
We will now move to journalist questions. Each journalist will have one question, and they can answer their question in the language of their choice.
CBC, your first question, please.
Thank you. Can you give us more details about students going every other day? Are both groups following the exact same lesson plan, just one from home, or will they be learning things on alternating days? It's kind of, I'm not clear on it, so could you provide a better picture of how two separate groups will learn?
Yeah, I think the important thing is they're not two separate groups, they're a class, and that'll be the approach that the teachers are going to be taking. And as I outlined, it's going to depend a little bit on the approach that the individual teacher is going to take, but it could be a synchronous learning situation where the students are connected for the entire class period. It could be a model where they are doing group work, that the teacher would be assigning material, that the group at home would be connecting and doing research or collaborating. If you put yourself in the sense of where we've been since this pandemic, most of us have gone to online formats and we're doing group discussions and group meetings and things like that. And with the Microsoft Teams, that will be fully available for our students. Again, there could be some experiential learning. As I mentioned, we are working on some different electronic co-op options they're going to be there for students. So all that is going to fall into this particular situation.
Thank you, George. Marcel?
I'm going to answer for the Francophone sector. In essence, it's not going to be very different from what we know school to be. A teacher has a class, half the class is present, and the other half is at home. The teacher has learning objectives that they set out, and the teacher is responsible for creating learning activities that will be conducive to achieving these learning objectives. Of course, technology will be center stage. Students will have to connect. Teachers will continue to have to take attendance. We can still do presentations. We can have discussions with all of the students. We can ask students to work together to solve problems or to do research and individual work. Of course, having 5 classes in a day for high school students sitting at home could be difficult. It might be difficult for them to remain engaged throughout the day. Once school starts, we'll have to support teachers and encourage them to share best practices, share wins, and ensure that we're able to vary our approaches to make sure that students remain engaged.
Mia, do you have a follow-up?
I do, thank you. Parents have been told that some students, particularly those deemed to have high needs, may have to attend school every day and not on a rotational schedule. So can you explain which students this could include, and when might parents find out that their kids are going every day, not every other day?
Thanks, Mia. Certainly our goal would be to have all our students in schools every day. So when we introduced last week the definitions around vulnerable students, the focus was on students who fell into those categories that we felt it would be a must that they would be in every single day. And it could be because they needed particular routines. It could be because they're coming from challenging home situations, food security, personal safety issues, students who need regular mental health supports. That all falls into that vulnerable category. As we mentioned, the teachers are starting back to work on the 31st. Teachers, resource teachers, principals, they make up those educational services teams that will deal with individual cases. So as they return, they will be picking up those caseloads. So I think it was we indicated by September 4th that parents should have expected to have had contact from the school and that information be shared.
Thank you, George. Marcel?
Thank you for the question. Of course, the idea here is that we want most students to have a positive experience throughout the school year. Generally speaking, students will go to class every other day, but certain students will need to go to school every single day. Imagine students who already take advantage of support services, learning support services. These students will be able to go to school every day to access these support services. The list of vulnerable students covers all sorts of subjects, mental health, and other vulnerability factors. It can even include students who can't have access to the internet and and we can't find an alternative solution for them. We could even consider that those types of students go to school every day.
Thank you, Mia. Alexander Silverman, CBC, your first question, please.
Thank you. This is for Mr. Daly. How many students do you anticipate won't have a computer by the start of the school year? And will you have enough laptops to loan out to all of them?
I don't have a number, Alexander, to say how many are not going to show up. We have built a contingency plan with somewhere in the area of 11,000 devices that we have available in the system. Our projections are that we are going to be nowhere near that particular need. Some of those devices will be used to make up the kits for the middle schools that we're having in case we get to a situation where a class or a middle school would have to isolate for 14 days. We have ordered somewhere approximately 7,000, excuse me, 7,000 devices that will be coming in starting the first week of September. So I think with all of those together, we're not worried today that any student will not have a device. We will make sure that everyone is looked after. Does that answer what you were looking for?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Alexander, do you have a follow-up?
I do. Dr. Russell, team sports will resume, but playing wind instruments is not allowed, according to earlier announcements.
The doctor is here with us today.
Oh.
Did you have another question for the deputies?
Yes. Parents are, this is for Mr. Daly, parents are commenting on how hard it is to buy computers for high school students. Some aren't getting through to the department when they call, and some stores are sold out. What's being done to address the problem, and what's your advice for parents?
I guess my advice for parents is to get out there as quickly as they can. I know I've had some conversations with individual parents who have ordered and had devices delivered within 24, 48 hours, so I haven't heard of great backlogs out in the system. Again, as I indicated, we do anticipate that some students may not have those devices in hand to start the first day or week of school. That's why we're building the contingency plan that we will have devices available to make sure that those students are looked after and will allow for that time of the delivery that's needed.
Axel?
I would like to reassure parents with regards to purchasing laptops. This announcement came late, and it means that we need to have tried to purchase a laptop relatively quickly. As mentioned earlier, suppliers are finding it challenging to meet the demand. We are putting in place a plan that will have computers to be loaned out to students who don't have them in time for the first day of school. We've already estimated how many laptops we might need, and it seems that we have sufficient in stock to meet the demand.
Thank you, Alexander.
François Leblanc, Radio-Canada. The question is for Monsieur Lavoie. I heard that Chromebooks and cell phones were not good long-term. That's what they said out for the English sector, but you didn't mention anything like that. Is this the case for the French sector? Can they start with Chromebooks and cell phones? Thank you for the question. Can you give me more information so that I understand the French sector question with regards to access? I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question because someone disconnected from the line. I was just asking if you could give me more information about your question. Yes, no problem. Your English colleague said that Chromebooks and cellular phones are not appropriate for long-term online learning, but it was okay to use them. Is this the case for the Francophone sector? Can students use Chromebooks or cell phones to start the school year? Definitely, it's okay. They can use any device they want. The idea here, and I want to be very clear, is the bring your own device model means that all students, without exception, are able to connect every day. That's what we want. But starting the school year is challenging because of access to devices, especially devices that have the correct configuration. So we're putting together contingency plans that will allow for us to meet students' needs while parents secure laptops. But yes, any device that allows students to connect in the first weeks are acceptable. Of course, we hope that this won't go on for too many weeks, but it's a good bridging plan until everyone has their laptop computer. But as long as we have a general technology that allows students to participate in activities. Just one moment. I think George would like to add something.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify that the message is not that they cannot come to school. They can come to school. What parents need to know is early on in this, we established a tech committee from central government and from the ECD to do an examination of what did we need for devices that would last a student for 4 to 5 years to take them through their period of high school, as long as have the best potential experience with those devices for the best quality learning. And what came back were there were some devices that were on the market that may be functional this year because of the capacity of those devices that next year, the year after, they may not meet the needs. Also with regards to phones, some of them work very well. However, they're small screens, no keyboards and things of that nature. So while they may be functional, they may not provide the best educational experience. So that's where that frame has come from, that we have the recommended specifications.
George, merci, Marcel.
Do you have a follow-up question? I would like to follow up on something that was mentioned by Mr. Lavoie. He was talking about digital co-op programs outside of classrooms. How will you be able to manage this in a pandemic when we're already asking companies to have reduced staff? There are places where employees can't even go work on site. How will you have internships and co-op programs when we're faced with these challenges? Thank you. That's an excellent question. In the last 2 years in the Francophone sector, we have already been working on the career project plan. We want to give students the opportunity to work within communities and in workplaces as soon as possible. And the question you ask is a question we're asking ourselves. There are some places where it is possible. We're already talking with other departments to talk about the messaging and support that we can provide. But we have a responsibility that is clear. We want to ensure the safety and security of students when they go into workplaces. It's possible that the private sector would be reluctant to welcome students during a pandemic. I think we can expect that in the first months it might be more difficult. We'll take that time to lay the groundwork in order to maintain this vision that we had from before the pandemic to give students the chance to do internships and co-op experiences. We believe in the value, the learning value that these experiences may bring to students.
Your first question, please.
I'm wondering, are you expecting teachers to keep track of students who are outside of the classroom learning from home while they also have students in their own classroom? Or are we talking about two different teachers that students could possibly have? So a student could have a different teacher at home, I guess for different courses, and then have another one in that same course when they're actually physically in school. Or how is that going to work?
Thanks, Laura. I'll give you two parts to the answer. First of all, the scenario where we have a classroom teacher who has half of their students with them and the other half at home. So we have to be cognizant that with this model, the teachers will only have half the regular number of students in front of them. The goal there is that they will be connecting with those students daily. If they're using Microsoft Teams, the students at home will be popping up on the screens. If they are set up a format where they want to do synchronous learning, they will follow through that way. If they're doing project work, group work, they will still be able to connect with the students at the start of class or the middle of the class where the teachers are going to deem suitable. We will be asking for them to keep attendance and stay on top of the students because it's important for us to have that daily connection with the students and the teachers. The other part is we've had for quite a while something called online learning with the D2L model, where we have entire cohorts of students learning virtually. And that model was developed years ago in an approach for that our small high schools who may not have had enough students to offer a particular course. We have, I think it was at the start of the pandemic, we had 17 or 19 teachers online, and they were offering these courses, and their class could be made up of students from across the province at the same time. Again, a virtual model, and we have all of our curriculum from 11 to 12 set for that now. We are looking at expanding that model for the future. So if students are registering for those particular courses, they potentially could be fully online, and the teacher would have a full class of students online.
George, Laura, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, on that, is there going, I guess, how many more teachers, have you confirmed how many more teachers you are going to be hiring for this school year or already have hired for this school year? And can you confirm the number, the financial cost of this school year compared to last, I guess, the extras that this is going to cost?
Yeah, I think we shared that previous, Laura. It was 154 on both sectors. I think it came back, there was a 99.55 or something of that split, with a total cost in the area of $11.5 million in salary.
Thank you, George. Marcel?
In order to reduce class sizes, we had to add teachers. we added approximately 150 new teachers, which is an additional cost for the upcoming school year of $11.5 million.
Graph Journal, your first question, please.
Thank you. You both started your presentations out by saying there's differences between the Francophone and Anglophone system. I just failed to see them from your presentation. Could you highlight what's being done differently in the two systems?
Well, as we said, there were some slight differences between our systems, and we wanted to recognize that we're representing the duality of our province here, and that we do have some different approaches. One of the things is the D2L system. I think on the Anglophone side, we were a little more advanced than our Francophone counterparts on that. On the other side, and Marcel can describe this better to you, but their co-ops and their vie de carrière model that they had is more advanced than where the Anglophone side is. It's something that we're working towards trying to get closer to where they are on it. So the one thing about the pandemic, it's really led us to sit down and have a good look at what each other is doing, and certainly look for the strengths of both sides. Does that help, or do you want more?
That's good. I have a follow-up as well. You said you have a contingency of 11,000 devices. That's a lot of devices. Where did they come from? And then also, because of this technology shift, is this the end of snow days for high school?
Okay, just one moment. Marcel, I believe, has something to add to your first question.
Thanks.
Je veux juste donner le pendant francophone.
I just want to give a Francophone answer. So New Brunswick has a dual education system. So each sector is autonomous and independent from the other. So yes, there are certain differences. With regards to the pandemic, we've had to develop security measures that would guarantee the safety of students, and they are identical on both sectors. But when it comes to curricula, there are certain differences, and it's not that one is better than the other, they're just different. So when we try to define curricula, we have to be nuanced in our approaches.
Yeah, thanks. We'll go back to the number. We have devices that are going to get us through the month of September and October and November and so forth if we needed to, but these are not devices for long term. We've brought some devices back in and put upgrades in place. Some of them are devices that are currently in other schools that are in use, so we're hoping not to have to touch them, but they are there if we had to access them for somewhat of a quick response here in September. So there's not that there's a vast amount of computers just sitting out there not being used. It's about us making decisions on how we're going to redirect and repurpose them. With regards to your questions on snow days, I have to be honest, my focus has been on the pandemic and getting our students back to school in September, and I'm really hoping that we're not going to have any snow days in September.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Adam. Simon Delort, Acadie Nouvelle.
Acadie Nouvelle, first question. The question is for Mr. Lavoie. Hello? Yes, I'm ready. I would like to know why New Brunswick is the only province that is using a mixed learning approach. How come other provinces are able to operate differently? Inaudible. Last week you were talking about your concerns about mental health. Inaudible question. Thank you for your question. It's a complex one. At the outset, on July 2nd, when we announced our back-to-school plan, we said that for high schools, we were going to have students present every other day. At the same time, we assumed that technology would play an important part. From there, we had two choices. One where parents would have to purchase devices, or the alternative would be the government purchasing the devices. We debated the question for a long time. It would have been almost impossible for the education system to purchase 35,000 devices and maintain them. We wouldn't have been ready to go back to school before January or February. After our survey, we found that over 80% of families already had devices that allowed their children to use technology for school. This allowed us to consider filling in the gaps with our subsidy program, and that's a program we created. Right now, we know that school is the environment where there is the least technology compared to every other environment outside the classroom. The New Brunswick population is used to working with technology, and when they go to school, there's no technology or less technology. So obviously, we chose to move forward and to make that final step and to open the door to personal technology in classrooms. And this allows us to make our learning environments more current, and that allows students to take advantage of this technology to learn in class and at home. It allows for continuity of experience. We all do it in every area. The only place that there's less technology is in school. So to bring this into high school seemed like a very obvious decision. Of course, there are challenges that come with it. There will be some issues. We'll probably face obstacles we haven't anticipated, but we're trying to identify them as we move forward. For example, the subsidy or loaning devices if there are delays in acquiring devices. But eventually, we would like schools to function just like the rest of the world beyond the classroom.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty proud that we are the first jurisdiction in the country to introduce a BYOD program here in education. You know, in response to the pandemic, we had to try to make decisions to keep everyone safe. And we had to try to decide, 2 months ago, what would school look like in September. You have to understand that we are trying to put in place a system of protection, a system well planned, a system well prepared for 100,000 students, 15,000 employees, and all the families of the province. The choice to go with the BYOD allowed us then that flexibility of ensuring that we had the 1 meter spacing inside of our classrooms, which has been recommended by the World Health Organization from the very start of the pandemic, allowed us to have students in school at least every second day. And if we ever do get to the point that we have to shut a school down again, shut a class down again, that we can seamlessly step out of this and go to full online learning. BYOD is not simply a response to COVID. It is a new way of education in the province, and after we get a vaccine or after we get to a situation that we are comfortable of putting students all in the building, it is still going to be there, and we're changing education in the province.
Thank you, George. Simon, avez-vous une suivi?
Is there a follow-up question? So this new model is for the future of New Brunswick, whether there's a pandemic or not? Simon, can you repeat the question? So do you think this model is the model of the future in New Brunswick? Inaudible. The answer is yes. We are putting in place a system that meets an urgent need so that we can go back to school safely. We want to support student learning, but at the same time, through our discussions with school districts and schools, it makes sense to continue this vision in a long-term context. Schools need to be updated, education needs to be updated, and we need to make space for technology. This opens doors and access to information and learning. It's a useful tool. Everyone uses these devices every day.
Merci Simon. Geneviève Normand, Radio-Canada.
Geneviève Normand, Radio-Canada.
Jérémy Bélin, CFAI.
Mr. Bélin, CFAI.
Geneviève. Tim Roselle, Local News. That concludes today's update. Our next update will be on Tuesday, September 1st. Thank you. Voilà la fin de notre mise à jour. Notre prochaine sera le 1er septembre. Merci. Bonne journée.